Welcome to episode 331 of the Working Fans Podcast. Please check us out over on patreon.com. With the Royal Rumble coming up, we've been putting up Royal Rumble watch-alongs. We've been putting up some of our classic interviews on there. I'm going to start with what I just had on TV because it was one of the more... I haven't been watching a lot of WWE, and I've been watching things more lately just that have excited me. I don't know. WWE, I don't know if I want to say they feel stale, but there's nothing exciting right now, and I feel like there's a lot of excitement with TNA Impact. Dave, did you get to watch last night?
I did. And I'd like to talk a little bit about TNA Impact. I'd also like to talk to you about the whole thing with WWE, because I want to comment on that. I think we talked about this a little bit too, and I'd be curious what you think about this. Just a quick sidebar. I've talked to you since WWE has changed up their platforms too, with switching things around, and I got rid of Sling. I know I've talked to other people like this, like with NXT. AJ used to be a big fan of NXT, but when they went to the CW and he no longer had like YouTube TV that carried it, he doesn't watch it as much anymore. And I do think there is something that may be being a little stale right now, but I think there's something to us personal viewing habits for right or wrong, good or bad. We do what we do. And unless, because I'm watching WWE again, but I had to actively change my habits. I had to, go through Nord, VPN, and I started watching things that way. And I find it...
Yeah, you get Nord on the computer, so you watch it in there. I don't have Nord on the TV. I've got Netflix on the TV, so I'll catch up with Raw when I can. These European times have thrown me off. But, SmackDown, I have to have the Fire TV plugged in.
Right.
I have to be watching it then, or else I don't find a replay. It's funny that you mentioned with AJ and NXT, because when they moved to CW, I just downloaded the CW app.
Right. See, that works for you. You're a guy who will watch something the next day a lot of times. And
oh, yeah, I really don't mind at all.
Right. And so it's interesting. So AJ always tries to watch it the night of. But TNA is what you asked me about. I thought they did bounce back this week. We were a little too kind to them last week. Last week was not a good show, and I don't think we said it was, but I think we tried to be kind. We were optimistic. I can say optimistically last night watching it, not that it was the greatest show ever, but it was definitely a big improvement over the first week. Not perfect, but man, if they could have took that show last week the show they had last night and combined it with just bringing AJ Styles back and, having Mike Santana with the title, and this could have been their first show out of the gate, this would have been a much bigger night for them. I'm just going to go over, I did take a few notes. Cedric Alexander had a great match to kick it off with Moose. He beat Moose. That comes into play at the end. Mike Santana cut a good personal promo. He actually played clips of his dad, who's passed away. You heard his audio over the arena, and his dad talking about, remember, you worked hard, basically you earned this and you deserve this and you fought for this and you belong and stuff like that. It was like, wow, that's powerful, That
was the first time that the Frankie Kazarian shit seemed okay.
Yeah.
But it seemed like it took him 2 weeks to get there.
The other big news, of course, Trey Miguel. Trey Miguel, who got hired as part of the Rascals in AEW, was let go, assuming from some some homophobic stuff he mentioned in 2020 and some tweets that I believe he had apologized for, but came under the radar. I think that's the speculation. And WBD caught wind of this and he got let go. Trey hadn't really talked about it, but Trey said, this we do know for sure. Trey said, I'm taking time away for wrestling. I'm support the Rascals. Well, time away must have only been about 4 or 5 days because this motherfucker showed up last night.
Actually, Dave, we're going to talk more about this on Patreon because a former guest of the show got roped into this controversy amid rumors, but we'll talk about that on Patreon. I really enjoyed this because, when I first heard they all went over to AEW, I'm like, all right, that's cool, but that's a loss for TNA. And then you hear about the tweet and how it's keeping him out of there, just like it kept Jay Briscoe out.
Yeah.
And then when I watched him return last night, I'm like, oh, this is where he needs to be. I feel like he could have been lost in the shuffle at AEW, but now he feels like he could be, I'm going to say top of the X division, even though the X division has no limits, but it feels like he's going to be a star here.
It is interesting though. He did get one of the briefcases last night and that Feaster fired. For all all we know, he could be fired, and that was off just an angle. I doubt it, but
I saw Matt Hardy say that TNA had the chance to do something hilarious. I was kind of mad when I saw him come back for Feast or Fired because it was a gimmick I talked about last week, not being a fan of. But I thought it was great to see him there. It made the match more interesting.
I hope Eric Young actually is the one who gets fired, and I hope he goes to NXT. And I hope we see something with Sanity again. That's my hope. And that's how you make that work. And then everybody else gets title shots. Finishing up, though, on TNA, the return of Ash by Elegance last night. She jumped winning the the TNA Knockouts champion. She won it on an NXT event. And, of course, the big angle at the end of the night, the System, JDC, Dango, he retired. Obviously, at Genesis, he came out just to announce a new member, Bear Bronson, almost a guest on the show. We had an interview with him. It's lost in the archives somewhere. But Bear Bronson came out, and then they ended up attacking JDC and attacked Moose. Cedric Alexander comes out like he's making the save. Nope, he joins the attack, and we have 2 new members of the System, and that's how we finish, with a beatdown by the new System. But I like it. I like that we have new members. I'm
glad that you glazed over that Elegance segment because that's exactly what it deserved.
It was the worst part.
That sucked. That felt like week 1.
They were possibly the worst part of the show on week 1 too. Like they were definitely. I don't know. This gimmick's not hitting. I'm happy that there's someone else back. I know Ash had been working hard before this, but the overall gimmick, especially with this Mr. Elegance character, and just whatever reason, the matches too have just not been hitting the last couple weeks. So we'll see going forward. But
I haven't enjoyed them for a while. They fit like a part of the program, and I guess when you look at wrestling as kind of like
buffet,
a variety show, a buffet, a little bit of everything. But like they were just booing during that segment, and it was just. It was garbage. It wasn't enjoyable. But I'll tell you what was enjoyable. Go back the night before. You had Jordan Oliver and Alec Price debut on AEW, and I tuned into this because been a fan of these guys for a while. Alec Price, former guest of the show. And when I saw they were wrestling FTR in their first match, I'm like, I have to check this out. I thought they looked amazing in there.
Yeah, I liked the match. I thought it was what it was, though. I mean, they had a competitive match. This is very AEW booking, right? You're going to bring them in, and they'll have competitive matches. And that works for this particular situation. More importantly, I thought commentators put them over, and they really highlighted how these guys were a big deal from the independent wrestling scene. Alec Price, you said former guest of the show. Me, I almost more familiar with Jordan Oliver from his MLW days with Myron Reed. I've seen stuff with him in GCW. I watched a little thing they recorded for social media on AEW, about Buster in the Brain. And I never realized they had that kind of like Pinky in the Brain world domination thing going on, but I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, it adds another, layer to him. We've been watching Jordan Oliver for years. The kid's really bulked up.
Yeah.
He's gotten better as time's gone on and really stood out. He's had great tag teams with Alec Price. He teamed with Nick Wayne also. So I wonder, could we see Nick Wayne somehow get involved with them as well? I'm looking to see more from them.
Hopefully.
I know they had a feature on, I don't know if it was the Ring of Honor YouTube or on Watch ROH on the Honor Club app, but they had a bunch of matches that these two did for ROH in December. So it looks like it was something they were lining up.
I think them and the Rascals could add some new life to AEW in the sense, I think AEW has been good lately. I think one criticism, I heard Brian Alvarez talk about this sometimes in AEW, is that everybody kind of stays in the same spot. There's not always a lot of movement. A lot of the guys who are on top. And sometimes it takes a long, long time before anybody gets any kind of movement. I'd like to hopefully see that broken up. I'd like to see these guys, and the Rascals maybe mix it up, and maybe we'll see some, I don't want to say gold necessarily, but maybe some Ring of Honor gold for these guys. Maybe Trios gold for the Rascals, something,
If nothing else, I think what it could really do is bolster the tag division, because we've talked last couple of years how we love tag team wrestling, but it hasn't really felt exciting. This feels exciting in AEW as long as it gets featured better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're going to be on Collision, but that'll be coming up this weekend. We've got Saturday night's main event this weekend. Previewing this weekend's Saturday night's main event. It feels like we just had the John Cena retirement, and I honestly don't know what the lineup is for this. This is kind of the least excited I've been for a Saturday night's main event in a little while.
Okay, so I get it.
I had kind of forgotten about it with all the talk of the snow and me just not tuning into a ton of WWE. It didn't even occur to me till I was listening to a podcast last night, and I'm like, oh yeah, that is coming up.
Yeah, I like this card actually in some ways because I mean, I'll start off with the main event. I think this is the match you'd be most interested in, but I assume this is going to be the main event. Cody Rhodes versus Jacob Fatu.
Oh, that's a big match. Yeah, especially given what happened with the title. That could be fun. I like that.
How about we go with a shocker? How about Jacob wins because Jacob just came back and you don't think Cody's going to lose? He just lost the title, but he does. And it just puts more pressure on Cody going into Rumble and seeing where he goes from here. I say give it to Jacob.
I was just debating that because I'm like, does Cody take another win? But it's like Jacob's been out a while. And if he gets a win here, that could be a big splash for him. It's like a win over Cody, and then there's a reason to come back to it, or it gives Cody a story. I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say Jacob.
Yeah, I think so. And this might lead to something like an Elimination Chamber with Drew, Jacob, Cody, or you never know, So I think there could be something to this.
Yeah, put a bunch of guys in there going for Drew's title if he's still holding it.
Rhea Ripley and Io Sky defend the title against Judgment Day's Liv Morgan and Roxanne Perez. Should be fun, but I think this has got to be Rio and Sky. I think it's still early for them to lose these titles here.
Yeah, that'll be a good match, but
a lot better than any Ash of Elegance or Elegance Brand stuff as far as
I don't know because like Roxanne and Liv, they're a good team, but yeah, Io and Rhea just got it. Yeah. It doesn't make sense for them to lose it, so I'm gonna say Io and Rhea.
All right, I've actually kind of given my prediction on this already. I think I've talked about it. At least could be off air, but the match I'm actually looking forward to, the Fatal 4-Way to determine a number one contender to the Undisputed Championship at Royal Rumble by Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton versus Trick Williams versus Damian Priest versus Sami Zayn. I think we're in Montreal. This crowd's going to be on fire. I think Sami's going to walk out with a victory, and he's going to Saudi Arabia to challenge Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship.
It'd be foolish not to give Sami the win here. It's going to be great to see Trick in the ring with Randy Orton. Even Trick during versus Damian Priest could be good. But yeah, it's just going to be great to see Trick featured on that level.
I think Trick and Damian Priest are actually wrestling on SmackDown tonight for this. And they had Trick beat Cardona to get in here. And I think Trick beat Ray Phoenix before that. And he's been interrupting, people like Randy Orton. I think Trick Williams is starting to really get a pretty good push right out of the gate on SmackDown. And why not? I mean, the guy looks like $1 million. He talks like when Trick Williams talks, he feels authentic to me. He feels unique, And
he's been ready for that spotlight since like a year ago in NXT.
Oh, for sure. He is definitely ready. And that's the big exciting stuff really to me right now with WWE is Trick Williams, Obafemi, and even Braun Breaker still to see if they're going to put the title on him again in a rematch or what. But like the guys that are, coming NXT in the last year and coming out right now, it's like, okay, let's see how they're going to do because I think there's some people that are going to make some waves here.
Yeah. And is that all the matches on the card?
3 matches, man. We could get a 4th one, but usually there's 4. There's only 3 right now. So
wow, makes me wonder if that multi-man match is going to get some time, or is Cody and Jacob going to get some time?
Both, yeah.
Usually you'd expect another match on there. We've got a couple WWE things. I'm going to go with I'd argue the smaller of the two, but you put on that Natalya turned heel.
Yeah.
So what happened here, and is this looking like a reinvention for Natalya?
That's why I actually brought it up. That's what I'm most excited about. Is possibly the Natalya we've seen, showing up at Bloodsport, India NWA and in AAA is possibly now coming to main roster WWE. One of the things we've done with Maxine Dupree with this feud with Becky was they had vignettes of her working with Natalya in the ring, like in the dungeon, trying to give her an edge. Personally, I don't think it really works. I mean, Maxine, I think, tries, but she just doesn't really fit that look, So it was interesting because Maxine, we had this rematch with Becky Lynch and Ireland on SmackDown for the Women's Intercontinental title. And there's a moment here where Maxine has Becky down and she goes for the pin and Natalya puts Becky's leg on the ropes. Maxine sells shock. She looks, like what is going on. In the end, Becky's able to sneak up, manhandle slam, score the pin. Natalya then puts a long beat down on Maxine and puts her in the sharpshooter multiple times. I would say the only thing is I think there was some crowds chanting one more time, when she did it. So I don't know how well that bodes for Maxine or the heel run, but I think it shows promise that Natalya might get finally a chance to do this version of herself in WWE.
Yeah, it's about time. She's been there forever. She's obviously got the strong wrestling lineage, and I don't think that her characters have necessarily lived up to the aura or the background that she brings. So that does sound exciting. That'll make I might have to check out Raw. And then we've kind of talked about it leading up to this, but it's going to be AJ versus Gunther at the Royal Rumble. If I'm not mistaken, if AJ loses, he retires. Yes. Do we see a retirement at the Rumble, or do you think they stretch this out a little bit?
I think they stretch it out. And I think that's one of the things why I like this booking, because, AJ had the match with Gunther the week before, where Gunther had actually tapped out, but the ref didn't see it. And then, of course, he gets back in the match and Gunther is able to, pin AJ. And there's this controversy. Gunther's talking about, I'm going to the Rumble. AJ says, I want one more time. Gunther says, I'm not interested. Well, Gunther says, well, maybe if you put your career on the line. AJ agrees to do that. And I think one of the reasons why it's a good booking is because this is the 10-year anniversary of AJ Styles debuting in WWE. He debuted at the 2016 Royal Rumble. AJ has already talked about he plans on retiring in 2026. There's plenty of reason to think AJ is going to retire. It works. And I think that's why he won't. I think AJ is going to retire on his own terms later in the year. Or maybe it's at Mania. Maybe AJ beats Gunther and Gunther ends up winning the Rumble and gets the title and ends up being AJ versus Gunther, career versus career title. They could do something else again. Or maybe AJ will just, finish his career later on the road in a match he chooses against, somebody like a Leon Slater or a Javon Evans or something on Saturday night's main event. And that'll be how he retires. Who knows? But I just feel like there's enough reason to think he's going to retire, but they're not going to do it yet. That's my guess.
So what's your early guess for which month does he retire this year?
I'll go WrestleMania.
I'll go WrestleMania. You thinking WrestleMania?
Yeah, I'll go WrestleMania.
I'm going to say post SummerSlam.
Okay.
Post SummerSlam, maybe before Survivor Series.
I guess the key would be is maybe look to see if there's any big events in Georgia and stuff coming up. That might be
sense. See if they do something close to home for him. Well, that is episode 331 of the Working Fans podcast. Please, if you enjoy what you saw, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you know when we go live. Head over to patreon.com. Check out everything we have going over there. And if you head over to Patreon, you're going to be able to catch some exclusive post-show talk. Until then, here's Vinny Berry.
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Russellville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harris, and Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Russellville.com. Russellville. It's where wrestling lives.